So this notion of placemaking, homesteading, creating an aesthetically pleasing environment for the residents in that homestead, creating landmarks and monuments and archives and records of them, preserving their green spaces and common spaces. That brings us to the next block of ideas, which are the cultural economy. Once we have a vital place, then we need to create a vital marketplace and workplace for those cultural workers within that. And I've asked Bob Welch from Jump Street if he'll start by talking about the importance of festivals and special events as a tool and an incubator for the cultural economy.
Thank you, Lenwood. Nice to see everybody here tonight. I couldn't echo more Brenda's comments about the park system. So when we started looking at festivals, most of them outdoor, some of them indoor, all of them pretty amazing, really. There were different types, some large festivals in green spaces on holidays, and then many festivals throughout the year. You know, we all recently, well, most of us recently probably decorated for the holidays. So you get out that box of lights, right? In your front yard or your tree or your side window or whatever, that's your personal park system. That's your infrastructure. You got the box full of lights and you go to hang them, and then your daughter runs up to you and says, "Dad, don't do it that way this year. Maybe you hang that over here. That tree's gone now, Dad. They have to take that down. Don't sit there and cry about the tree being gone. Put that light over there, hang that over there." And it was beautiful, and it was new, and it was the same tools, right? So if we, on our larger festivals, can reimagine the box of beautiful lights and decorations and structures that we have, especially, like, I couldn't get out to the one thing with a, she said, "Here's an extension cord, Dad, and it blends with the grass." So new ways to wire some of our larger events, like combining two pieces of a holiday celebration and making it more attractive to a corporate sponsor, like the holiday parade and New Year's Eve. Maybe reimagining the 4th of July and everybody get together for earlier conversations and cooperations around a shared fireworks display that can be monumental instead of ones that tend to be one after the other and fairly the same. So there's, I think it's about cooperation and rewiring and hanging things a little differently in our beautiful places. I'm amazed by Italian Lake. I'm flabbergasted by Reservoir Park. My children, when they were this little, one of our favorite things every year was the African Family Festival. And my kids, that's where they celebrated every summer as they were growing up in Reservoir Park. So we looked at these larger festivals, and I think that a plan will come together in the near term for us to imagine new partnerships, and in the long term, as we work with Lenwood and lots of people for a request for proposal that'll stabilize the delivery of these large holiday festivals.
Now, Bob, you held a roundtable and a networking session of our community and small festivals. Would you give us some top-line feedback from practitioners?
Absolutely, sir. You know, that's right where I was going with the Next Gen Arts, African Family, LHAC's Hispanic Heritage, Allison Hill Multicultural, Pennsylvania Regional Ballet as an example of a local agency hosting a national festival. That comes and goes. The National Lace Festival was here not too long ago. Who knew? But it added tremendously to our economy that year. Shakespeare in the Park, unbelievable. I mean, Lenwood, what we found was incredible cooperation on limited resources and really moving the needle to move people into our city. And buy things, celebrate together, have fellowship together, break bread that they bought here locally together. There were heads in beds where we didn't figure it was coming. Here's a strategy, never dawned on me. Deliver Shakespeare that nobody else is doing. Do minor works. People ride around in RVs going to Shakespeare festivals, but they come to Harrisburg because they can see a work that they weren't getting in Milwaukee or Boise or wherever else. And our people have strategized sort of in silos. So I think, and they've done marvelously well. So when we put folks together, and it was a representational group, by no means everybody. We would have, 50 people in the room, 100 people in the room, Wendell. We had 8 or 9 folks. And we had, with Lenwood's help, we brought in Ira Rosen from International Festivals and Events. We convened the group, and three things came top of mind, Lenwood, and I'm putting on my glasses because I wrote it too small. A co-marketing effort would be great to get the folks together to enjoy that economy of scale and understand on a shared calendar so they're not stepping on each other's toes and not trying to bang out an event on the same weekend. So that's planning and marketing. Some uniform policy and procedure coming from the city would be marvelous. The how-to, what Mira talks about, a local arts agency. If there was a how-to kit on festivals, how do I get water? How do I get electric? If I'm indoor, what permits do I need versus outdoor? That how-to kit would really empower people who spin their wheels asking the same questions that their neighbor just did, but they didn't even go to their neighbor and say, what's the answer? You know what I mean? And that would be a beautiful thing. And then something that it really works well for some of us and needs to work a lot better for all of us is cooperative buying of things. If we recently put a couple of packages together and cooperated on renting tents and tables. We were all at $5,000 over here, $15,000 over there, but when we realized we rented $35,000 worth of stuff, we took that $35,000 package to a vendor and we got a better price. So if we could all cooperate more on our printing, on our posters, on our equipment rental, we would then have more money to serve more people. And for me, the biggest takeaway was neighborhoods and families. We should have some portable celebrations that feel like picnics in these beautiful parks. My family's favorite thing coming up, the African Family Festival, where we had celebration and songs we'd never heard from places we'd never been and probably never will be, but we were there that day. And in that festival setting, it was magical.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you so much. And I look forward to 9 turning into 90 in your next festival roundtable. So Bob talked about tourism. We know that tourism is the second largest industry in Pennsylvania, right behind agriculture. I've asked Mike Ciappelloni if he'll talk about cultural and heritage tourism from the point of view of our brick and mortar institutions that we refer to as evergreen, in that they are open for at least 300 days each year. Mike?
Yes, thank you, Lenwood. We are the assets in the community that are open most of the days of the week, and similar to what Bob is sharing, we're not united in selling a grand, diverse experience. And we all know, everyone in this room knows, that Harrisburg has that diverse experience. I organized the group of brick and mortars, and including the Pride of Susquehanna, which is a floating brick and mortar. But we all have the same challenge of reaching the same audience and
Who were some of the people who joined you at the table?
Yeah, we also had the National Civil War Museum. We had Ted from the Symphony was there, the Historic Harrisburg Association, as well as the John Harris Simon Cameron Mansion.
And the firehouse.
And the firehouse, yeah. The gentleman from the Fire Museum was thrilled to be there and was thrilled to be part of the conversation, for sure. The range in the room went from his 5,000 visitors to Whitaker Center's 160,000 that Ted mentioned. So we had a diverse group, but we all shared the same challenges: the perception of crime, the perception of expensive parking, use of public transportation. And I hear this all the time at Whitaker Center, and that is that suburbia is more convenient. It's I can go to the mall and park my car and not have any hassle, but you're not going to get the same experience in suburbia as you do in this diverse community. One of the things we also looked at some of the assets. On top of that diversity is actually the ease of accessibility from outside the community, as well as to navigate within it. We're very lucky to have all of these assets, and by working together we can really tell each other's story. It's truly something that we can't do alone on the day-to-day. At Whitaker Center, I'm looking at my marketing, but so is Ted, and so is the Pride of Susquehanna, and we're all printing. We did a survey amongst the room, and it was close to 1 million pieces a year being printed. But that 1 million pieces isn't saying the same thing. It isn't communicating a message of hope. It isn't communicating a message of diversity. and it isn't communicating that the lights are on here in Harrisburg. And that's something that we all quickly agreed. There was zero resistance that we all need to be each other's ambassador. So that was probably the summation of what was discovered that day, and that we need to co-promote, we need to talk about city pride, we need to educate the residents themselves, because 44% of our visitors are visiting friends and relatives. They're sleeping on your couch, but they don't know, and maybe you as their host doesn't know what the opportunities are here in Harrisburg. So we decided we need a greater communication with that. But I find that it's important to note also that it's not the job of the Regional Visitors Bureau to do this for us. And we have found through research that Harrisburg is one of the only cities to not have a citywide effort, a united effort to tell that story. So,
thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much. That is such an interesting statistic. 44% of the visitors to Dauphin County are staying in private homes. They're called VFRs, which simply stands for visiting friends and relatives. But it makes the kitchen table, the concierge, and the dining table, the tour desk, and that family gathering a group tourism experience. I've asked Kelly Summerford if he would speak to this notion of the family reunion, and bring that tradition back to Harrisburg.
Thank you, Linwood. It makes me feel good to talk about family reunion. My family's been here since 1900, and during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, many people had their family reunions in Harrisburg. It was simply because it was convenient. Like you said, many of the family members would come to visit other family members. And two of the reasons that I think this is a great idea is because we have a lot of green space. We used to have family reunions at Reservoir Park. Then we have Cycle Park. And the name reunion is something that is familiar with Harrisburg, because Harrisburg already has reunions. We had the Cycletown reunion, which was put together for those individuals who came through the projects. And many of them have gone to do great things, become judges, doctors, lawyers. And they feel that just that area was part of what made them who they are. And then we have the Uptown reunion, which individuals who lived uptown from Raleigh Street all the way up to Division Street. And they had their own pride. We have reunions that deal with William Penn and John Harris, both schools built in 1926. Those individuals want to come together and reunite. So when you use the word reunion, it's something that we're already familiar with. What we need to do is make sure that the world knows that Harrisburg is a good place to have your reunion. And coming together and sharing history is basically two of the reasons that people have a reunion. You want to come and see your relatives, and you want to talk about the history that happened within your family. If we decide to make Harrisburg that hub or a hub for family reunions, we already have a good start. We still have a underutilized space, which is Reservoir Park. We still have, we used to call it Sunshine Park. I don't know what the word is. Everybody changes names or renames that park. But we still have that park that's available. In 2000, I think it was 2008, the Summerfords had their reunion at Sunshine Park. It was convenient. It was easy parking. It was an area that we were familiar with. It was in walking distance to downtown. So we need to think about how can we pull all these things together. I think in terms of economic development, we're talking about small businesses providing catering for some of the family reunions. Although that may seem foreign to some people, if I'm coming to a reunion and I'm traveling to the union, if I am the host family, I may want to prepare some of the food, but I don't know that I would want to prepare all of the food. And then we have entertainment. I remember as Pennsylvania Pass player doing having Picnic with the Past. Reservoir Park is a fantastic place for a family reunion to say, now let's talk about some of the history of Harrisburg. Perhaps some of your history will be duplicated in what is presented there. So why not have a family reunion with the past? And there's no saying where we can go with that. We know what Open Stage has done. We know we have these venues that perhaps send in advance some of the names of your relatives from the past. Let Open Stage or one of our other venues decide to cast some of those individuals, so we could even make it more personal. So it's not just the Pennsylvania past players, but we're also using the talent of Harrisburg to talk about your family. I mean, it's wide open. We have landmarks and monuments. I heard them talking about that. Wonderful places that we can go. Wonderful places that we could tell our stories. We have theater, event, arts, and crafts. There is just so many things that we can do to make this a reasonable thing for families to do.
And
we can start with Harrisburg.
Restore the family's pride.
Absolutely.
In Harrisburg and pride
Absolutely.
in hosting.
And we have all of those things going on. I mean, I have a list way too long to to share with you guys on why I believe this is a great idea, and it's something that we could do, and it's something that we can do without very little cost.
But we want to roll up our sleeves in the first 100 days and get to work on your list.
Okay, well, I have a lot of things here, and we can talk about that much later, or if
Please
someone
share,
wants to
Kelly.
respond.
Feel free to share.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I love statistics, and so one statistic is that Harrisburg is within a 6 to 8 hour drive, Kelly, from 51% of the population of the United States. So maybe it's time for all of our Harrisburg households to tell all those people in a 6 to 8 hour drive that it's time to come on home to Harrisburg. Another statistic that I like sharing is that Pennsylvania is the 4th most popular destination for filmmaking. And we've been talking about, in the cultural economy, about the establishment of a film commission and a location office. And I'd like to ask John Trey if you'll share your thoughts.
Thanks, Linwood. There's been a huge transition in Hollywood over the years, and that is that films don't have to be made in Hollywood or even in New York City or even in some of the larger meccas, even in Atlanta. Films now have transitioned to be made everywhere, and the independent film market has kind of opened up that opportunity, and the big industry welcomes it because as the independent filmmakers make films, they don't have to put out all the cash to do it, and that opens up an opportunity that we can kind of tap into. That being said, when films are made and developed, they bring in money, and they bring in money to the city. Just like we heard earlier about symphonies bringing in money, the Whitaker Center bringing in money when people come to the city. When films come to the city, they come and they bring a lot of money, and that ties into the economic development. Now, what a film office would do, allow producers of film and episodic television and commercials today to provide a gamut of free services, from scouting locations within the area to troubleshooting with local areas, cut through paperwork and bureaucratic red tape that they would normally find if they did not have a film office or a central hub to come to. So this is a very doable thing that we can do right here in the city. What we need most in order to make something like this happen is really easy. We need the endorsement of the city. We need the city and local government to endorse the Harrisburg Film Office or Harrisburg Film Commission. Just the title of the film office or film commission brings a legitimacy that is attractive to the industry that we're targeting, and it'll help aid and push for film projects coming to the area and allow us to be taken seriously in this venture. And we just need the city to stand behind us in the effort as we kind of rally for film projects to come into the city that cost nothing. We also need a physical space to function. That's huge. It could be a pre-existing space in the city that the city already owns and operates. There are spaces that are currently not being used within the city, and this film office could occupy this space and function in the name of the city of Harrisburg, and that would be good. Support from the city with creating incentives. This would include, but not limited to, building partnerships and relationships under the city's authority with local hotels and restaurants, kind of as Kelly was speaking about earlier, and perhaps cutting them breaks in certain areas, tax or otherwise, in turn for them creating cost-effective opportunity for filming. Also, that would fall under the city's authority. Under the city's authority, they could also extend certain graces that the city may already have with their local partnerships and relationships. They could extend those to the film community under their jurisdiction. Also, simplifying the permit process. Right now, it could be difficult for a film project to come in and get going, but a film office would simplify that, and we would need the city's help in doing that and helping to cut through paperwork and red tape, just to make the process friendly, easy, and accessible for other films that would like to come in and take part here. With all of these elements in place, we could have the necessary components to start a legitimate film office, and also, as long as we had the city's quote-unquote seal of approval, we could find the necessary resources and funding and whatnot without significantly cutting into the city's budget. But we would need that authority first.
That stamp of approval,
that stamp of
that
approval.
endorsement, that authenticator for an office.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Kelly if he'll come back for just a minute and speak about this notion of casting also. Kelly Summerford and I were talking about all those roles that are called bits and extras, and he had a very clever idea about how Harrisburg could create a specialty casting program.
Again, something else I'm excited about is a film office in Harrisburg. We only have 2 in Pennsylvania, and Harrisburg would be a great spot for it. And setting up incentives and like John Trey was talking about, which is something too that I just want to add, which would be an easy startup for Harrisburg, because I believe what that film office would initially do is be the broker between the producers and what we have to offer in the city of Harrisburg. And I believe that that's part of the role that the film offer would do is broker the deals. When we talk about casting, Harrisburg is put together with diversity that is amazing. When we talk about casting, it's not necessary, in dealing with the union makes it sometimes difficult for many of the films to come to Harrisburg because we don't have those union people here. Well, we can coordinate that kind of thing in terms of specialty casting. Seniors, we need to think about those people who are retired, and they're not looking for major roles. They're not looking for something to pay their rent. However, they're looking for a few dollars to do some of their favorite things. We can start casting seniors. We have a huge amount of youth from all ethnicities. We can start doing specialty casting, those with special talents. Very often, the first film I ever worked in was in Philadelphia, and they said they needed someone who could jog and bounce a ball. That's a specialty. We can start casting all those special talents that Hollywood is looking for, or those movie makers are looking for. I believe that if we have a film office, we have casting, and we have all the green spaces. Every one of Harrisburg's neighborhoods could be any neighborhood in the country. John Trey was right. Hollywood is on wheels now. It's no longer in the studios. We can make all those things work.
And would you end with your great 3 locations, Harrisburg?
Harrisburg we're one of the few. We have a wonderful river. We have an island, and we have the prettiest capital probably in the country. I didn't say that Universal Studios. I've already said it. So we are doing good here in Harrisburg.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, Ann, we are going
Lenwood.
to make a place, and we're going to stabilize that place and excite people about coming. We're going to build an economy for the cultural workers. That leads us to the pursuit of happiness, which is serious business.
I'm going to stand up.
Yes, ma'am.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, women too, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, we've taken care of that, and the pursuit of happiness. And I say that arts and culture and heritage can make us happy in extraordinary ways. My topic's arts education, but I did want to give a little shout out to the roundtable that the artists convened as part of this process, which has been a really great process. And I feel just thrilled to have been a part of it. It's been so unique, long overdue, but really invigorating. And so we called together about 15 people who make art or manage art in this town, and they met for the first time in my memory and shared ideas and got fired up. And we're going to continue with these meetings.
And what kind of organizations were at that table?
At the table were Steve Rudolph from the Central Pennsylvania Friends of Jazz, Stuart Molina from Harrisburg Symphony. You know, once you start naming names, you forget. I'm going around the table. Ellen Hughes, who was representing Market Square Concerts. Wendell was there on behalf of Barack. Carrie Whistler Thomas from the Art Association of Harrisburg. Nancy was there, and so was Lorene Buckley, thank you, our newest member of the community, who is executive of the Susquehanna Art Museum.
That gives us a good primer.
Open Stage, now I've got to wave the flag. Open Stage was represented as well, so that's who was there. So anyway, the topic of arts education is something very dear to our hearts, my heart. I've been doing it way too long, and we all love it. But when we think of education, oftentimes it ends in 12th grade or maybe 13th, 14th, 16th grade. And then once we become adults, it's all over then, right? And nobody learns anything anymore. And I say no. I say we learn our entire lives. I've learned, and I'm old, and it's invigorating. So my proposal will be short because so many wonderful things have been said today, but I want to see our city used as a classroom, and I think we can make that happen with the input of almost everybody who spoke tonight, to harness our resources so that the city feeds the soul of everybody who steps into it. There is always something beautiful to look at, or something exciting, challenging, even controversial to think about as you walk down the street, whether it's a monument with lovely signage in front of it, whether it's, oh, I hate that sculpture, but what's it supposed to be? Let's talk about it. Or, oh, I love that man sitting there with the newspaper and I want my picture taken with him. More and more and more of that. Art asks questions. It doesn't always provide answers. The audience is left to seek the answers. And so, therefore, that's what a good teacher does. And I think that Jeb's artifacts and archives, everything that was talked about here can be a source of stimulation. And for older people, they are one of our most powerful resources. They have the memory bank. They have the knowledge, and we must honor them and use them. And if they are in homes where they need special care, go talk to them, for crying out loud, and use them as wonderful resources. They're primary sources. They're primary history books. And so this is my rant for the evening, but I want to introduce, and there are plenty of entities who provide arts education. Wenda was talking about the kids. Okay, let's partner kids with professionals who come in. The children have to be taught art. They can't just be set loose, or they won't grow. They'll do what they know. So we partner them with a professional who is willing and able to guide them. And Lenwood and I were talking about this today. Technique. It's one thing to have the talent. It's another thing to have the technique, the how-to. That I know how to make a mural. I know how to design. I know how to play the violin. And so that's the flag I wave a lot, which is training, training, training with people who know how to do it and who love to share it. And Stephen Sondheim, one of the great composers of music theater, calls himself a teacher. So we need to foster that environment. I've got lots of pages we'll talk about how, but I want to ask our good friend Nate Gadsden to maybe talk a little bit about what the retired citizens of this community can do to engage us and to be engaged in this process.
Thank you, Ann.
Nate Gadsden, poet laureate.
Long ago.
Never take the title away.
That's right. How about that? Yeah. You know, long ago, I had a wonderful opportunity to work with some young people in Harrisburg School District at Ben Franklin School. And it was part of their, I think it was their after-school program. But at the same time, I was working right next door with the Jackson Lick group through the Harrisburg Housing Authority. And I was actually doing a arts kind of program with senior citizens there, and then, of course, with the young people. I decided to marry the two programs one day and bring the young people over to meet the senior citizens. And I bring this up because there was some interest, the senior citizens would listen, they were involved, and it was a good thing. But when I brought the students in, they lit up. And there was one lady in particular who always came, but she never participated. She was always just quiet, and she just kind of sat there. That day when I brought the students in, she decided to speak. The whole room got silent, and she just simply sat there and told a story. Her story about Harrisburg, her life, about growing up in Harrisburg and what it was like, and why she was encouraging these young people to take life seriously, to be involved, to take education seriously. There was not a dry eye in the house. I'll just never forget the power that she had over all of us, just telling that story. I bring that up because, one of the things that Ann mentioned, and that is that we have a tremendous resource in our community in senior citizens. And I don't call them senior citizens, I just call them elders. Our elders who speak much and who know much, add so much to this community every single day. If you go to any venue, whether it be the Whitaker Center or wherever, you see the elders who are participating. They are the ones coming and paying the money. They're the ones ushering. They're the ones who are there lighting the place up. Look at every venue that you go to, the Symphony, the Whitaker Center, wherever, open stage, you find the elders. And we can never, ever forget just how precious they are to our community. Here in Harrisburg, we have a wonderful agency called the United Way of the Capital Region that's all over the country. Here, they do volunteerism. We're involved in something called Coming of Age and helping to nurture this coalition of AARP and Lifeways and so many other agencies, WITF. And all of us are concerned about how we can continue to engage our elders in a lifelong educational process, but also just, take the information that they have and energy that they have and continue to let it thrive and be a part of this community. We know that our elders could be great mentors to our youth. And so many of our young people don't seem to even know who they are. And so we're trying to match them up in many different ways. I've seen Jump Street do all kinds of programming, from the physical to the theatrical to whatever, involving all ages. And you can see where that mentoring comes in. Barack does the same types of thing, where they've brought, and I've participated with a Window in One program that I thought was just fantastic, where you brought in some speakers, had all those kids, but then you had the elders there as well. And the elders really made a difference because the kids understood that they had to learn. I think Harrisburg has had and will continue to have a tremendous resource in terms of the people who have been here, the people who know, and people have come from other places and resided here now. And we make a difference. All of you sitting in this room, you make a difference. And if we could just harness our energy, our stories, our resources, and all of that, I know we will have a better community than what we do now. And we have a pretty great community now. But our young people obviously need to see something, and so we need to step up to the plate and we need to show them what really exists here. And what really exists here is a long tradition of people who continue to stay involved in community at every level. Harrisburg Area Community College does a wonderful job in terms of the courses that they offer to nurture some, whether it be pottery or whatever. And you see our elders going in and taking those courses so they can stay vibrant and stay, involved. We need to do more with that. It just kind of happens, but too many things oftentimes happen in little silos. We need to bring all this together, make sure the people understand that it's there, tell our story, Harrisburg, because we do have a wonderful story, and show that it goes from the cradle all the way to being an elder in this community, and that everybody plays a part, and everybody means, something to everyone, and that our future is bright because of that. So I'm really excited about our elders.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really wonderful. There's an incredible statistic, Ann, about the number of baby boomers who are turning 50 every day now. Mm-hmm. And because Harrisburg is simultaneously a city, a county, a state, and a federal body of retiring executives, there is a tremendous body of trained executive experience that we might be able to tap into. Bob Welsh and I were talking about, imagine a bank, if you will, of elders who could serve on nonprofit boards, who could assist executive at the executive level and bring that training in.
Technical expertise. Yeah. And I know it's a healthy thing for them to do. It really is a healthy thing for them to do, which brings us to the other half of the Gadsden dynamic duo. Ms. Pat, who's going to talk about arts and healing.
I want to thank everybody. It's been really very uplifting to hear some of the thinking and thoughts you have in regard to really making this city come alive in so many ways. And when I was asked to speak about arts and the healing, initially I was like, what could I talk about arts and healing? But then I said, there's so many things I could talk about when I think about arts and the healing. One of the things that I work with a lot, particularly with families and also with individuals, my husband Nate talked about United Way and this coming of age program that they have been involved with. It comes out of Temple, University. And one of the pieces of that is a program called Explore Your Future. And it's specifically for older folks, people that are considering retirement or have retired. Where do I go? What's the next chapter of my life? And so they go through 4 sessions and they start looking at what were those things that they got joy when they were younger, that they truly appreciated in regard to arts, in some manner or way. Whether it was in drawing, whether it was in painting, whether it was in music, whether it was in craft, whatever that was. And now how can I bring that into my experience and really allow that to work for me and having that pursuit of happiness and fulfillment? I also work with parents a lot in the evenings, and we do a thing called the Healthy Living Circle. And there's 4 parts of that Healthy Living Circle, and we talk about arts as a healing process. Well, one of those is physical, Physically, people heal better in arts in their life. And that's been proven in many ways, how art has been a stimulant, and it allows people to get healed and physically healthier and able to continue in their lives, and really thinking about that and using art visually, okay, whether it be through various things that are going on in facilities that people may be housed in for some reason, and they are there and having the rooms, okay, being cheerful, the colors that are, really inspiring and get people motivated and innovated. And that's that whole physical aspect. Or music, okay, and the music that's coming in to soothe and allow people to be able to really feel confident and comfortable and feeding that soul in so many ways, so physically. But then another part of that healthy living circle is the emotional, okay? That so many people have had pain and have hurt, have had disappointment, and how art helps that healing process in emotional, mental health ways, and that people can identify and determine and decide how could that best work for me. And we've heard stories from so many artists in so many ways that have said that's what allowed them to heal emotionally, mentally, was to be able to have that happen. The other part is what we call the social, okay, aspect of our lives, and the healing that needs to happen and occur, and how the arts can bring people together to be able to have that opportunity and to do those conversations, those discussions, how the art really connects them, and they don't really know or appreciate that we all have similar interests, and that can be a way to make those connections, and we can have these healthy conversations. We talk now, and I'm working with the YWCA of Greater Harrisburg, and really looking at racism, okay, and what the causes are, and some of the things that we're starting to work with to put into place. And one of those things, when we think about healing, racial healing in regard to relationships, and how can that really work best for us and do things through the arts to have those type of opportunities to bring people together and really have those conversations and really see that we're more like my friends and we're different. That's Maya Angelou, okay, in regard to her poetry and how she expresses it. And then the very last component of that healthy living circle is spiritual, all right? Spirituality is how the arts help people grow spiritually. And that is not just about religion. It's about the other forms of spiritual connection, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through prayer, whether it be through music, whether it be through art, whatever way, and allowing people to know that's another way to have that met for and with them. And this is what we really like to see Harrisburg do. See how people can, in fact, explore all four of those manners and ways in regard to renewing, healing, and being able to contribute and share it in some way. Most of you may be familiar with Abraham Maslow, and Maslow identified 7 needs that all human beings have. And one of those needs, he added 2. He started with 5, and then he most recently in the 80s added 2 additional ones. And the last one he added was aesthetic needs. People have to have aesthetic things that are happening, beauty, order, symmetry in their lives. And this is what arts and the healing can do. So I'm hoping we can see how we can make that happen and take place.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left, and so, but before Pat, we transition to Q&A, I want to say that there are 2 things, Pat, that we were also thinking back to back about this arts and healing that you and I discussed. I'd like to invite viewers and participants to Google Duke University Hospital in North Carolina and see the outstanding art and healing program that they do inside of the hospital. Same thing with Tulane Cancer Program, bringing poetry and music into the terminal illness. But there's also, Pat, the other side, which is healing the artist. And we need to have a real dialogue about medical insurance for artists, dental insurance for artists, young artists, and are also young homeowners, young family owners. Not only the young ones, some of us old ones don't have insurance either. So this notion of developing capacity for a whole community, Dr. Brenda Alton talks about a healthy community is a whole community. So I really appreciate it. And now, Ann, some questions.
When everybody came in, we asked you to imagine what could be done right out of the starting block, right off immediately, without relying on an inordinate amount of city funding, which isn't there. And we're good with that. We can work with a lot of very imaginative ideas. So I have here some index cards, and I'm going to ask the question. And if you want to ask questions of each other, that's cool. We can be let that go. We can be rotating among you, and maybe we can get dialogue going. But I'm going to start with Michael Ciappelloni. I've heard the word story a lot. A lot. Yeah, that's cool. What do you mean? You say that all the assets, whatever they are, should in partnership establish a story. Would you reiterate that a little bit? I thought that was interesting.
Certainly, it doesn't take any money to decide who you are. And I think one of the themes of the evening has been cooperation and collaboration with a pride and an identity. So for me is we need to decide who we are, and then we need to tell that story, and we all need to be telling the same story. So it's really inviting to hear a story.
Great. Anybody have a comment about that? Open Stage does stories from home, so I like to hear that.
And once we're all on that same story, we're all ambassadors. And that's one of the things we certainly need to do is create ambassadors for the community through that story, through that united image and that united brand. If we can think of Harrisburg and think of the same thing, I think we'll have success. So.
Great. It's very primal to sit and tell the story and to pass it down and to honor it. And I think that's
and shared stories, Michael. You know, common stories that share the culture. We've got some time. Let's take some more.
Okay, Wendell, how can we engage a business? You have here a business owner who might be watching this program to participate in creating a space for public art.
Well, that process of engagement as far as our smaller businesses and medium-sized businesses and larger businesses that exist in the Harrisburg area, I don't think that a lot of times art is the first thing on their mind. The bottom line is usually the first thing on mind. However, if as a collaborative force, we could bring the business community into this type of discussion, to get them to realize they do have resources that we don't have. I'll use the mural arts program in Philadelphia as an example. When Jane Golden and Wilson Good got together, well, Wilson Good brought Jane Golden in to do it was the Anti-Graffiti Network at that time. The city was at that time able to provide a funding line in the city budget. It wasn't to take care of everything, but it was just to be able to have something to bank on. But the process that was used from there was to show businesses and incorporate businesses in the process of building art space, of utilizing their buildings as canvases, as utilizing the whole the economic force and power of somebody who is making $1 here in this community. Well, here's a way that dollar can recycle back into the community by investing in beautifying and creating that space, that artistic space across the community itself. Now that can be from the small business owner that has the corner store, doesn't have anything more than a 10-by-7 sidewall that's there that says, hey, go for it, and is willing to, will help by putting $100 in to help buy some paint. to a larger corporation that's part of the downtown, midtown space that has much larger resources that can be factored into that, but it has to be approached from a collaborative group point to have an effect.
Great. I think we have time for 2 more questions, Ann. Don't forget those menus that can be designed by artists, placemats that can be designed by artists, environments, centerpieces, all that kind of stuff.
I know when we walked in here last night, just looking at this studio, somebody designed this. I bet it was an artist. I don't know. I'm just a wild guess. And it gave Lenwood and me, I don't know, I felt this is really nice, Compact Cast, thank you. We feel good about bringing our people in here, and we know it's going to look good. And it's just a small example. So let's think about that. Jeb, please tell me, what is in those archives? What objects are there? Tell the community what's there, what's so important about them.
And why should we care about it?
Why should we care?
I touched on it a little bit earlier, and they have been closed for the last 4 years. So we need to get in and assess exactly what's there. But it's, again, newspapers. And many of the newspapers are printed on rag content as opposed to later newspaper content, and are white. They are as white as if they were printed yesterday. And these are newspapers from the 1830s and 1840s, and they were Harrisburg newspapers. City atlases, again, the 1889 atlas, the 1901 city atlas, and others that can document buildings, building materials, whether they be frame, whether they be brick, what buildings existed then, what streets existed, and how the city evolved from that period through subsequent atlases. Very important information. Birth and death records, in particular. Vital statistics that don't exist, I don't think, anywhere else that's easily accessible. Again, birth records for the city and death records within the corporate limits of the city that really span the period from the 1890s to the 1930s, but still very good information. City directories, a number of city directories from the late 1800s until up to the 1950s or 60s that can document just not who lived where, but there are cross-references in terms of you can look at the person's name and then find out where they lived and vice versa. Very important information. Postcards, photography. Again, the photography is extensive, and we were in the process of documenting and trying to establish finding aids for that. That can be easily resumed once the city archives is open. There is an archives website that's been up, even though the archives has been closed. The website is there. That can be reactivated. And the address on that is harrisburgarchives.com, and it can be easily found through Googling Harrisburg City Archives. There are a number of finding aids that are there, and that gives you an idea of the kind of information that exists.
I think we have time to squeeze in one last question before our tag.
Brenda, what do you mean by trust?
Well, my suggestion would be all of these are really fantastic ideas, and without a lot of dollars, we just need to establish the vision, and then the powers that be need to trust the partners and the community leaders to go forth and do good, because it really takes trust on both sides to make things happen. And you can't control the process. You just have to be sure that there's consensus about what the vision is.
Now, the new administration asked the community, Brenda, to step up, and they are trusting us to do that. And Ann, would you share the community's response in 100 Days of Culture?
I sure will. Thanks, Brenda. The arts community, in their roundtable, chose to initiate what we're calling 100 Days of Culture, which is a salute for the first 100 days of this new administration, but it's a salute to our city by the arts community. So the artists in town, the arts organizations in town, will begin to unite in this 100-day, initial 100-day program with a logo, with a slogan saying, Harrisburg, arts are for you, you must be for us. Together, do yourself a favor. Partake of the arts. And we will have a campaign that I think will be really, really exciting, and we'll roll that out for the first 100.
That's January 6th to April 15th. We will salute ourselves and applaud our progress and our collaboration with 100 Days of Culture. We've come to the end of our 90-minute dialogue, and friends, we've come to the end of our public process. For now, we'll see each other at breakfast and continue our work. This is a roll up your sleeves and get to work campaign. We are empowered by the new administration's acknowledgement of the importance of arts, culture, heritage, and tourism. The first administration to establish a transition team, we are going to transition into progress and transition into greatness. And I thank my friends and colleagues. And now let's get to work. Thank you, Harrisburg. See you soon.